Hi all. Today we will learn how to implement the Stripe payment gateway with PHP. We will also understand how 3D security is implemented, which is really important aspect these days in payment gateways. I've used core PHP, JavaScript and HTML CSS to explain the entire process. I've also used a little bit Bootstrap to beautify the button and the layout of the form. This video is being recorded in May 2024 and utilizes the latest API provided by Stripe. However, if you're looking for older ways to integrate Stripe, I have another video that I prepared in 2021. I've added the link in the description, so be sure to check that out. Let's dive into coding straight away. So I will open this folder in VS Code. I will create a payment form. We'll initialize the HTML. Let's add the title as payment processor, and I will create a form, and inside that form I will add a div to show the payment card. I will add a button to handle the submit event. Let's add an ID here, and then the text would be pay now. I am also going to add the Bootstrap CSS and JavaScript. Alright, so we have basic skeleton ready. Now what I'm going to do is I will add the Stripe SDK, JavaScript SDK here, which is, let's say, js.stripe.com/v3. This is the latest Stripe SDK. Now, since we have the basic part ready, let's start initializing the JavaScript SDK and mount the payment form, the credit card form, in the payment element that we have created here. Let's also add some event listener to this form. So I've added a event listener here, which says that whenever this form is submitted, we will call this function handle submit. Let's also make this button as submit button. Also, let's define the handle submit function. It will be an async function. Alright, before we work on this submit functionality, we need to first initialize our payment form. So let's do that. Initialize. This will initialize our payment form. So this initialize function is basically calling a backend URL, which we will create shortly, and it is fetching the client secret from the server. This client secret is basically coming from payment intent. So let's start working on the backend as well. And before we write any code, we need to first install the Stripe SDK. Okay, so this is installed now, and you can see a vendor folder is created here. We will run the auto load file to use this. If you're using any framework like Laravel, CodeIgniter, latest version of CodeIgniter, you won't necessarily need this. But since I'm writing it in core PHP, I have to. So I need to add my account secret key. I will paste here. And now I will initialize the Stripe with Stripe key. And then since I'm receiving the JSON request, I will do it like this. This is the PHP way to receive JSON requests. Request object would be JSON decode request. Oops. Now I will create the payment intent using our Stripe object. Now what this would do is will create my intent. I need to pass these parameters. I'll use INR as my currency as I'm using my Indian Stripe account. Here, as you can see, I have used this amount variable. In your real project, I'm sure this 100 figure will not be fixed, so it will depend on the product the customer is purchasing. So do remember to update this. Now I will fetch the client secret from payment intent and respond it back to our front end. And now I will update the URL here. This is payment.php. Upon receiving the client request from the backend, we will use that secret to mount the payment form here. So this is how we would do that. Elements, client secret, and constant payment element, elements.create payment element. This is to indicate that we are creating payment element, and then payment element would be mounted on the payment element div that we had created earlier here. Alright, so let's run this code and see this in action. Localhost 8000. Oops. I need to pass the actual URL. It's not working. Let's see where the issue is. Okay, we forgot to initialize this function, to call this function. Let's call this function and reload the page. Okay, so we have the payment form. Let's add some style to it. It's spread across the screen. Let's go to the page again. Alright, so we have our form ready. Let's add some top margin. Alright, so we have our payment form ready. Now let's add some class here as well, btn primary. Right, so since we are using Bootstrap, we can use these classes to add style to our form. Now our form is ready. The payment credit card form is mounted in our div as well. We need to now work on the submit functionality. Let's see. Constant error await Stripe confirm payment elements confirm params return URL this is our base URL, and we want our users to return to our website back once the payment is completed. So what this does is it calls this confirm payment function, and if there are any errors, this value will store some information. If not, then it will be totally blank, and we would perhaps need to add some error handlers here. I'll add one quick error handler, which could be, let's say, if somehow it was an error related to the card, so it would be card error, and then we can add some messes here. Let's see how the handling works now on the front end. I will reload the page. I'll add test card, and then date, CVV. Expiration could be any date from today. CVC could be anything, any 3-digit number. I'll click on the pay button, and now you can see it has returned back with some more information, as you can see in the URL. So what we need to do is, we have received the information from Stripe, and perhaps the payment is also processed, but we don't know it yet. So what we will do is we'll create another page to handle the response. Let's do some magic here, payment response, and then just like we had initialized the Stripe, we'll do it here as well, and then we'll add div alert here, which would be blank initially, but then after we receive the response from Stripe, we would then show the details here. Constant Stripe. I'll add the secret key here, and then I will define an async function, which would be like check payment status. What this would do is it will fetch all the information from the URL and send a query to Stripe to confirm if the payment was succeeded. Window.location, search, and then get. So what we need is, we need this parameter, this one, and then let's add some validations. If there is no client secret, I mean if someone accesses this URL manually, then we would not display or render anything here. Now we will try to get the payment information. Stripe retrieve payment intent, client secret, and then there can be different status. I mean, payment can succeed also, payment can fail also, so we need to handle it accordingly. For the demo purpose, I'm just gonna write one simple status, and that is to see how the payment success would work, and then I would display it in an alert box. Succeeded. All right, now let's see. Okay, well, we need to do one more thing before we go there. We need to change the URL to response.html. Let's go back to the main URL, right? And then okay, something went wrong. Oh, I think we need to initialize this function as well. Check payment status. Now let's reload the page. Okay, it says payment succeeded. Alright, so we have learned the basic Stripe integration. However, in the real scenario, what we would ideally want is to handle and to check the status from our back office, because in many cases we don't get the response from the customer's bank immediately. So in some cases, the payment status for any payment could be in processing also, which is not likely to be converted to succeeded or fail immediately. So in those cases, it might be confusing for the customer. So what we can do is we can set up a webhook URL, and what that webhook URL would do is whenever there is a change in the payment intent status, it will send back the response from this Stripe gateway to our server. So in order to do that, we will first create a file. Let's say it would be webhook.php, and it would be a PHP file. Just like we did last time, we will initialize the auto load function and then this try. I mean, this is not the best way to write the code. I mean, I'm writing the repeated code. You can manage it in a better way, but just for the sake of simplicity, this is what we can follow. And then let's add this block in try catch, so that if something bad happens, we should be able to handle it. Unexpected value exception, and then here HTTP response code, that would be 400, and let's echo the message as well. Let's add another exception handler, which is signature verification exception. I'll explain it later. HTTP response code 40, and then I will return a message signature mismatched. So what this means is, whenever Stripe would return back to us, our server, it would attach a signature along with the request. We need to verify that, otherwise anyone could call our URL and insert malicious information, which we don't need actually. So this signature verification ensures that the request that is coming to our server is actually coming from Stripe. We'll see how that works in a moment. Alright, so we have this event webhook, and then we have this construct event. This takes 3 parameters. One is the payload, so let's first create the payload. Again, it would be JSON request, so we will write it like this. And as I mentioned, Stripe sends us some signature information. which is in the header, http Stripe signature. Alright, so we have two variables here. Let's pass them. So one is this payload, second is the signature header, and then the third would be the secret. So Stripe also provides us with a webhook secret that only two people in this communication, one is our backend server and second is the Stripe itself. These two people only know about it. So I have copied it from my account and endpoint secret. Now that the event is created here, this event can contain the information regarding our payment intent. So we can handle it using a simple switch block event type, and then first case would be payment intent dot succeeded payment intent. Let's say payment information is JSON and code. So it will be in the event data object, and then we will break this here, write another case statement, intent dot payment failed. These are the actual status returned by Stripe, and then here also payment information will have the values from same object, and we can break it here. We can add a default statement here just in case to handle unexpected situations, and then it would be unknown status found, and then we can also print, let's say, the type here. Now again, in the real scenario, we would want our detail to be stored in our database somewhere. So I have created a database. So here I have our database. I have one table created here, in which right now I'm only storing the event data in the database, but in actual scenario you would probably want to store these information in different columns so that it makes more meaning for the future and for the display purpose. But for now, just for this demo, I'm going to store all the details in just one column, which is event data here. Let me open the structure view here. So let's go back to the code. So I will initialize the variables here: server, username, admin, password would be password, DB name would be PHP Stripe demo. We just saw that, and then we will come here and write our code to store all the information. New PDO. If you don't know what PDO, please Google it. It is one of the most popular ways to communicate with the database. MySQL host equals server, and then DB name equals DB name, and then the username and password. Let's create our connection on the top, like here. We'll put it in a try catch block to handle any unexpected situations. PDO exception, and we will echo this. get masses. So our connection is established with the database. Now we need to write our query to store it in the database. Insert into payments, and then the column name values would be payment information, and then connection will execute this SQL. We can do the same here also in case if our payment fails. Alright, so we have set up the code. Now the only problem that we have here is that this entire system is running on our local computer. Stripe doesn't know about it. So we need to make this system running online. And in order to do that, I will use a tool called ngrok and localhost 8000. So what it does is it puts my localhost URL online and it gives me an HTTPS based URL which I will let Stripe know about and inform them to send all the webhook information here. Let me do that. Alright, so I have added my URL in my Stripe account. Now let's run our code on local machine itself. For some reason it doesn't seem to work. Payment succeeded. Now I should be able to see the information here. So as you can see, it has Stripe payment intent JSON. So we have all the information like amount that was captured, amount received, and payment method and all those things. You can look at these details on Stripe website and play with it more. For now, I think this should give you enough information to get started with your next project, and let me know in the comment section if you like this video, if you face any challenges in implementing Stripe with your project, and I would be glad to help. Thank you for now, and if you like my video, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.